Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 250. Hey, we're still out there going strong. Thanks to you folks. I appreciate you dropping by. Give me a little bit of your precious time. I really hope that I'm helping you move your photography forward by helping you be a better photographer. So thanks so much for coming in. Also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. If you haven't heard yet, this week on Saturday, my aviation seminar is going to be live, both in person at the Tulsa store of Bedford Camera, as well as on the internet. I've got folks signed up from around the globe, and I am not only touched, I am really excited. I am also exhausted. I have been putting in so many hours on this program. Bedford keeps helping me with products and ideas that I can keep incorporating. So all together, Bedfords and we're going to bring you a great seminar. And make sure you head to bedfords.com, get that exclusive Moose, M-O-O-S-E discount, save some real bucks, and probably majority of the time, get your gear sooner than you would anywhere else. Save money, gear quicker. Expert advice, bedfords.com. I'm going to get right to this week's topic. Comes from Beth. Beth's question. Actually, she sent me an email. It's really kind of sweet. I want to read a couple. I'm going to take a couple of sentences out of the paragraph. It says, "Dear Moose." That's a good start, right? "I've been listening to your podcast since the very first one." Beth, thank you. That means a lot. There's a lot of you like that, and Beth, that's why I'm doing them. To continue, a lot of your podcasts seem to be themed more on the photographer than the gear. One thing I notice you talk about quite often is problem solving. Okay, explain it to me. I'm old. I don't get it. Thanks. Well, Beth, I don't think that's the reason why you're not understanding what I mean problem solving. But I do appreciate the question. Let me see if I can answer it for you. It actually goes way back to when I was 18 years old, 17 and a half to be exact. I went to orientation at Brooks Institute Photography in Santa Barbara. Back in '79, that was quite the thing to go to that school. Went to the auditorium there on Riviera campus. It's a beautiful theater. It's important to understand that romance because it's part of the answer. And you started at Brooks. You went for the first 6 classes, each class about 9 weeks long. And then after you went to those 6 classes, you went into your quote-unquote major, your specialization. And I have to be honest with you, at 18, I had no clue, zero clue. I just wanted to be a photographer. I didn't think a second past that. So the instructors are up there talking and this, that, and the other. And this young photographer gets up on the stage, one of the instructors, and he had enthusiasm that just brought down the curtain. And he's talking about being an industrial major, and he's explaining what that meant to be an industrial photographer. And he summed it up at the end. He goes, well, if you like to make things with your hands, you like to be a problem solver, you want to do something that's not necessarily, just what you happen to find, this is the major for you. Well, coming from my dad's wood shop and really wanting to be a photographer, what he said kind of rang true for me. So I became an industrial major. And an industrial photographer, you might think you just photograph industrial things, but it's actually... it's more than that. And me being me, I did other things too, fashion, what have you. But went to the first class. Mike Verbois was the instructor. He's the guy on the stage. And he starts talking. He's pretty calm. And then all of a sudden, before I know it, he's jumped on top of the table at the front of the room. And he's just waving his hands. And he's talking about this commercial shoot he had to do up in San Francisco, where he had to get a lamppost removed to take the shot the client wanted, and how he had, and he's just the enthusiasm and the animation. And he's talking about how he kind of conned the city into giving him a permit and conned the public works to remove this this lamppost long enough to get the shot and then put it back, and you show the pictures, and you got to realize this is back in the early 70s, long before Photoshop was even, there was no things called digital photography, let alone computers that we were accessible to. And he said simply that, and I don't remember the paycheck. It was very impressive. I remember it got my attention. And he summed up the whole thing by saying, for those who want to be successful as storytellers and get paid for that passion, you have to learn how to solve problems. I've been doing that ever since, and that's stuck. And that's what I try to share with you. Yeah, believe me, I'm not standing on top of my desk right now, waving my arms around, telling you the story. That Mike was young then, and I'm not now, so that's not going to happen. So Beth, problem solving. Problem solving is, in a way, you could say, writing that outline so you could write that story. Buying the parts so you could repair the car. Buying the materials to build that addition to the house. That's the problem solving. And what it entails is, first you have to envision the end. What is it you want at the end? What do you want to show for your time, your efforts? And most importantly, and Mike stresses a lot, your passion. You got to understand that passion is a big part of this problem solving that I'm talking about. So you have to go through all those kind of, you got to think that through. And then here's the challenging part. And as you got to understand that there's nothing in photography that's not challenging. It's all challenging. But that's kind of the fun. If you wanted to say, yeah, I'm 70 and I can't carry a big lens and I can't do it, then you can turn off this podcast right now. I mean, I've talked about my hero many times, Auntie, who, is out there, bless her heart, way past, I shouldn't say way past 70 and just kicking butt and making great images. And that she is grasping this whole thing of problem solving. So, for example, let's say you have a desire to photograph hummingbirds and you live in suburbia America, and all around you is suburbia, and it's the pandemic and you can't travel. Birds, they can still travel. You want to photograph hummingbirds. There's the problem. How do you solve it? That's problem solving. The first step is you've got to do what? You've got to get the hummingbirds to you, right? That means you do some homework, buy some plants, put out some feeders. Then you want to get photographs. So then you have to think about the lens, the lighting, the location, the background. That's problem solving. All that goes into that click. And then you get that click and you go, oh, hey, here's a start. That's it. It's just a start. And then you look at what you could say were failures in your photograph or problems that you see. How do you fix them? How do you solve them? That's problem solving. When it comes to the profession of photography, if you are, let's say you're at the Olympics right now, think of all the problem solving the photographers had to do just to get on station to take pictures. And I'm not talking about just buying airline tickets. I'm talking about all the paperwork they had to process. Had to have their COVID vaccine, had to be able to prove their COVID vaccine, had to go in the country, fill out more forms, do the quarantine, jump through all those hoops. Then they have to deal with the constant change of the venues and not having like any spectators. And, if you're photographing sports, like some sports, let's say like water polo. Water polo, you don't really often see the people in the stands. But what about track and field? There's usually all those colorful shirts in the background from all the audience that's there in attendance that you can look at and make this really gorgeous background. Have you seen some of like Bill Frake's incredible blurs he's done of the runner going down the track and all those colors in the background from the audience? Don't have that. How do you solve that problem? All that, just to come back and tell us non-Olympic participants the fun, the majesty, the excitement, the trials, the tribulation that is the Olympics. Beth, that's what problem solving is all about. Now, problem solving, just so you know, and I'm not trying to depress you or scare you off, the reality is as you go further along in your photographic journey, the problems tend to be a little bit steeper, the learning curve a little bit steeper, the challenge is harder to come out with that final photograph that tells the story you want to tell. When you come up to that point, don't take it as, oh man, this is hard. Take it as, wow, I have gotten this far. I must be doing pretty dang good. Because you are. Think about the very first problems you had to solve to be a photographer. It could be as simple as having to earn the money to buy that first camera. And then to decide what camera you want to get, what lens. And then you just think about it as you go further. You had to learn about depth of focus and an aperture ring and shutter speed and exposure comp. Think about all those processes you had to, in this day and age, you had to get a computer, had to figure out a filing system, had to figure out a print. I mean, all of that is problems that once you do get that print out of the printer, you solved a lot of problems before you actually see that print. That is a huge pat on the back, your own self-reward for being a problem solver. I try to not get really complicated, or perhaps you could say, I try not to oversimplify either a lot of the conversations that I think I'm having with you folks, because I've been to those places, and sometimes, let's be honest, the problem could be overwhelming. The problem can be just this perilous, steep cliff that you're pushing this ball up, and you taking 2 steps forward, 1 back, you wish you were doing that good. That does happen in this whole process. And it's happened to me. It will happen again. That's part of the whole thing. You have to take solace in the fact, though, that is part of the process. And if you do come up against that wall, you are doing things right. It might not feel that way, might not seem that way. And sometimes you look at photographs, it might not look that way, but you are. And that, too, is a problem that you will solve. The trick is, and I think it is a trick, because it's not like, you can go buy the solution. The trick to problem solving is understanding that you will fail. That's part of the process. And once you understand that, then the problems never seem that daunting, never seem that monumental. They're just a momentary hiccup. In the beginning, when I started out, I did not understand that, and it did not serve me well. It served me very, I was a grumble photographer. There's no ifs and buts about that. And it took a while before it got through my thick skull that it's okay to fail, and it's okay to have problems that seem unsolvable, that might take years to solve. Years. There's nothing instant in this photographic game. There's no instant gratification. There's no instant answers. There are just, at that moment, sometimes better rather than worse answers. And I see a lot of photographers out there flailing, for lack of better terms, because of, they're looking at this equation really with the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. Because you would not have that problem if you hadn't succeeded in getting to that point in your photographic career. Now, solving problems isn't always just something that's inside your head. It's not always something buying a piece of gear. It could be the answer could be something that is totally, totally not photographic related. That's why I've always, no matter what I do as a photographer, no matter genre I'm working on, I look for other stimulation outside photography to keep me going, be it reading or music or movies or, commentaries or documentaries or biographies, because it just takes often one thing, a concept, a word, an emotion, a moment, a glint in someone's eye. And then the light bulb strikes and you go, there it is. That is my solution to my problem. And that is why I just love photography, because that is the possibility. You live life to its fullest, it will fully give you a life worth shooting. So, Beth, I hope that helps that answers the question and helps you be that photographer that you said in the last paragraph you really want to be. I know you can do it. I hope I see a lot of you folks on this coming Saturday at the aviation seminar. I can't wait to do it. And as always, I look forward to hearing from you. Remember to go out this week and make every click your story.